Hi and welcome to one-step inequalities. We're going to hit a few of these and we're going to solve them, we're going to check the solution, and we're going to graph them. So the first one I have is x minus 7 is greater than 9. You solve it just like an equation, but there are some differences. So first thing is you have to undo the subtraction by adding 7. All right. And as you might know, I like to draw a line here to say, hey, I'm doing the same thing on one side as I am to the other side of that inequality. So these cancel. I have x is greater than 9 plus 7 is 16. And there you go. Now, our original was x minus 7 is greater than 9. So to check, I have to pick a number that would fit in here. Something that's bigger than 16. Maybe 17. It's pretty easy. So I'm going to use my inequality, the original problem, and I'm going to have 17 instead of x minus 7 and check to see if that is greater than 9. Well, 17 minus 7 is 10, and 10 is definitely bigger than 9, so that checks. So we have our solve, we have our check, and now for the graph of this. Well, I always like to place 0. Okay, and what I'm graphing is this solution now. Now that I know that this is the solution, which I'll box in blue. That is the correct solution. That's the answer right there. But now we're often asked to graph it. So 16 is somewhere to the right of this. And since we have this type of inequality, that doesn't include 16. It has to be bigger than 16. So we are going to represent that with an open dot. And these are numbers bigger than 16, which are to the right here. So I'm going to have an arrow going to the right. And that's the graph. And that's solve, check, and graph of the one-step inequality. Let's try another one. Okay, here's another one. Now, students often freak out with that division here, but that fraction is a division problem. So the opposite of dividing is to multiply. Really, you just have to multiply these two numbers here. And what's happening when you show your work is you multiply by -6 and these cancel. And you multiply this by -6, just like an equation. Now 12 times -6, that's -72. And I have x here. Now there's an extra wrinkle here. If you multiply by a negative, that one right there, we're not looking at the 12. That doesn't matter. But whatever you're doing on both sides, see we're multiplying by -6 right here. When you do that, we have to switch the direction of the inequality, opening the other direction. See, it opens to the right, now it opens to the left. Now we're going to check it. We need something bigger than -72. Well, isn't 0 bigger than that? So let's use our original inequality. It was x divided by -6 is less than or equal to 12. That's the original one. And we're going to put, instead of x, we're going to write 0. So what's 0 divided by -6? Well, that should be just 0. And is 0 less than or equal to 12? Yeah. That is right. That checks. So that means that this is our correct solution. Now we just have to graph it. We're looking at the numbers these numbers have to be bigger than -72 or equal to. So I'm going to find -72. It's going to be somewhere over here, -72. And since we have this extra line right here, that means I'm going to color in the dot. That means that I'm including -72. Before, it was an open dot, and we weren't including -72. And the numbers bigger, again, go to the right. So there is the solution, checking the solution, and the graph to the solution of this one-step inequality. Let's try one last one. All right, here's our last one. And we have, and I want to add this right here. So, solving it, this is multiplication. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we divide by 5 on both sides. These cancel. X, -30 divided by 5 is -6. Now you might be thinking, oh, I just heard that I have to switch the direction when I divide by a negative, or multiply, and that's right. But in this one, we are dividing by a positive. this one, this is what matters right here. The fact that we are dividing by a positive, no switching. So, boom. That's it. Let's check it. We need a number smaller than -6, and -7 is something smaller than -6. So we have 5 times. So this was, sorry, this is the solve right here, and here comes the check. 5 times, I said -7 is something smaller than -6, and we'll check if that's smaller than -6. So, oh, not -6. Goodness gracious. It has to be smaller than -30, right? That was our original. See, I'm taking our original and plugging in something smaller than -6. So 5 times -7 is -35, and -35 is indeed smaller than -30, so that checks. Now let's graph it. We're going to graph this solution right here. And something smaller than -6, well, let's find 0. -6 is over here, and it's smaller than -6, so it's an open dot because we're not including -6. It doesn't have that extra line right here. No extra line, so it's an open dot, and it's smaller. So there. And there you go. There is the solve and check and graph of one-step inequalities.